Welcome to your daily financial news update. Today we're looking at a pretty significant shift in U.S. trade policy.
Yeah, and also some really ambitious plans for off-world data storage.
Definitely out there.
Yeah,
And of course, the ripple effects from all this global economic uncertainty just keep coming.
always something keeping us on our toes.
Absolutely. So let's start with the markets. U.S. stocks had a huge day Wednesday, just massive.
Historic, actually. The S&P 500 jumped 9.5%. That's the biggest single-day rally since, 2008?
That's right, 2008. The Dow was up over 7.8%. NASDAQ soared more than 12%. So what exactly sparked this huge turnaround?
Well, it seems to be President Trump's announcement. He declared a 90-day pause on those steep tariffs that had just been imposed on goods from most countries.
Ah, okay. Those tariffs really hit the markets hard when they landed, didn't they?
They really did. Vietnam, for instance, got hit with a 46% levy. That kind of thing definitely spooked investors, caused days of turmoil.
So a pause brings some relief,
Yeah,
and the market breathes a sigh. A very big sigh, apparently.
exactly. But, before this pause, things were looking shaky. We saw that sell-off in U.S. government debt.
Right, the 10-year Treasury yield spiked up. Where did they get to?
They hit 4.5%. That was their highest since February. Some analysts were even murmuring about the Fed maybe needing to step in just to calm the bond market.
Wow. Okay, but this tariff pause, it wasn't for everyone, was it? China's situation is different.
That's the crucial bit, yes. While most countries get this 90-day break, President Trump actually increased tariffs on all Chinese imports to 125%.
125%, effective immediately.
Effective immediately. This came right after China retaliated with its own tariff hike on U.S. goods, up to 84%. So the U.S.-China trade fight has actually escalated.
So we had this massive rally on Wednesday, but where does that leave the indexes overall? Are we back to where we were before the tariff drama started?
Not quite. Despite those big gains, the major indexes are still lower than before the initial tariff announcement hit. The S&P, for example, is still down about 3% from that point, and over 8% for the year so far. So the pause helped a lot, but didn't undo all the damage.
And what are economists saying about the long run here? Especially with China still facing these, well, enormous tariffs.
It's really divided. Some predict pretty minimal growth ahead, and they still see a significant chance of recession, even with this partial rollback. The underlying anxiety hasn't just disappeared.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's interesting how specific stocks reacted to. Nike had a big jump.
It did, yeah. Up 11%. About half their footwear is made in Vietnam, so that pause was obviously good news for them.
Makes sense.
And Apple soared, too, about 15%. Even automakers like Ford and GM, they rose sharply, over 7%.
Even though the car tariffs are still in place.
Exactly. It suggests the market saw the broader pause as a positive sign for the whole economy, maybe reducing overall tension, even if cars weren't directly part of the reprieve.
Okay, let's switch gears completely. This idea of data centers
Yeah.
in space. Lone Star Data Holdings says they tested one on the moon.
That's the claim, yeah. They hitched a ride with Intuitive Machines and SpaceX, apparently. Successfully tested a small data center unit up there.
Wow. What's the goal?
Yeah.
Secure data processing using solar power.
That's the vision. Secure, reliable data processing powered by the sun, either orbiting Earth or actually on the moon. It sounds futuristic, but it's gaining traction.
Why move off planet, though? What's wrong with Earth?
Well, it's mostly driven by the explosion in AI computing. AI needs just enormous amounts of data and processing power.
Right.
And finding spots on Earth for these giant data centers, it's getting really tricky. They're huge, they need tons of power, tons of water, and frankly, locals often push back at NIMBYism.
Gotcha. So space avoids some of those earthly headaches.
Potentially, yes. There was even a study funded by the European Commission by Thales Alenia Space.
Okay.
They figured orbiting data centers could be eco-friendly, but that's a big if. It depends on rocket launchers getting much, much cleaner. Their idea was like a constellation of satellites working together. Yeah.
Sounds incredibly complex.
Yeah.
What are the big hurdles besides just getting there?
Oh, plenty. Launch costs are still sky high, obviously. Then you need the infrastructure in space to protect the gear, power it, cool it. Space is harsh.
And repairs must be a nightmare. Space weather, debris.
Exactly. All major risks. Repairing things miles above Earth or on the moon, extremely difficult, if not impossible right now.
Yet companies are pushing ahead.
They are. Lone Star says they want a small data center in lunar orbit by 2027. And another company, StarCloud, plans to launch a satellite-based one next month, aiming for commercial operations mid-2026.
That's soon. Wow. Okay, aside from escaping Earth's limits, what are the other potential upsides?
Security is one potential benefit. You could beam data directly down to dedicated ground stations, maybe bypassing some vulnerable terrestrial networks.
Interesting.
And it could help with data sovereignty rules, too. Data stored in space might fall under the jurisdiction of the launching country, but there's latency.
Ah, the delay.
Yeah,
How bad is it to the moon?
about 1.5 seconds round trip. So, fine for some things, like maybe backups, but totally unsuitable for anything needing real-time response. Think video conferencing or financial trading.
Right, okay. Good point. Let's swing back to the global picture and those tariffs.
Mhm.
How are other countries reacting? India's central bank made a move.
Yes, they cut interest rates. And they shifted their policy stance to accommodative, basically signaling they're worried about global growth because of these U.S. tariffs.
And Indian goods face tariffs now, too.
Up to 27% on some goods going to the U.S. So yeah, India is definitely feeling the pressure or anticipating it.
And China. We know the tariffs went up, but what's their overall stance?
Pretty defiant. They've vowed to fight to the end, basically. They retaliated with their own tariffs, let their currency weaken a bit, and even put some export controls on certain U.S. firms. It's not de-escalating there.
What about places like Vietnam or Thailand? They rely heavily on U.S. export.
Sure, hugely. So countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, they're facing real economic headwinds from this. Vietnam, which got hit hard, has actually offered to scrap tariffs on U.S. imports entirely and wants to negotiate. You can see how disruptive this is.
And we're even seeing reactions from consumers overseas. Boycotts.
Yeah, there are reports from Canada and Denmark of some consumers actively avoiding American products. Partly tariffs, partly President Trump's rhetoric, it seems.
People using apps to avoid U.S. goods.
Apparently so in Canada.
Hmm.
Shows a kind of grassroots economic reaction, doesn't it?
It does. We also heard from some big names in U.S. business, like Bill Ackman.
Right. Ackman, who's generally been a Trump supporter, actually warned about a self-induced economic nuclear winter. He called for that 90-day pause, which then partly happened. Shows the level of concern even among supporters.
And the big banks are getting more worried about recession, too.
Definitely. JP Morgan upped their odds of a U.S. recession to 60%. Moody's raised their odds, too, citing the tariffs. And the Bank of England warned about risks to global growth and financial stability. It's a widespread concern.
And lastly on this front, U.S. car buyers are feeling nervous.
Yeah, because those 25% tariffs on imported cars and parts that were announced earlier, they're still on the books.
Ah, okay. They weren't part of the pause.
Nope. So people are bracing for higher car prices. Some might be delaying buying a car or trying to snag a deal now before prices potentially jump. It hits consumers directly.
Okay, one last area. Tesla and Elon Musk. Musk had some choice words for a Trump advisor.
He did. He called Peter Navarro, the trade advisor, a moron on social media, I believe. It was over criticism of Tesla's manufacturing. Highlights some potential friction there regarding trade policy impacts.
Interesting. And this comes as Tesla itself is facing some challenges. Sales down despite the growing EV market.
Yeah, Tesla sales actually dipped over the past year, which raises questions given the overall EV growth.
What's behind that, the analysts think?
It's probably a mix of things, not just Musk's public profile. Analysts point to Tesla's model lineup getting a bit older, maybe, and competition is heating up significantly.
From traditional car companies and Chinese EVs.
Exactly. Companies like BYD in China are making huge strides. It's not the open field Tesla had a few years ago.
And then there's the question of Musk himself. Leading Teslas, SpaceX, xAI, and now a government role too.
Right. It definitely raises questions about bandwidth. Can one person effectively steer all those massive, complex ventures, especially with Tesla facing tougher competition? It's a lot.
So wrapping up today's news, it's clear we're in a period of, well, major flux, big policy changes, technology leaping forward.
For sure. You've got trade policy shifting day by day, this wild idea of putting data centers in space becoming more real, and the global economy just trying to find its footing amidst it all. Creates uncertainty, but also opportunity, I suppose.
Definitely lots to track. It leaves you wondering, what are the really deep, long-term consequences going to be from these tariff adjustments? We see the short-term market reaction, but years down the line.
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And on the tech side, if the space-based infrastructure really takes off, how fundamentally could that reshape our digital world? Security, access, maybe even things we haven't thought of yet.
Key questions indeed. Definitely developments we'll keep following closely.